we are at the 11th hour before a funding deadline where the budget of the United States is at stake. Tomorrow, the continuing resolution expires, and we are facing the prospect of another continuing resolution. I pray that we don't do that. This has been a very disappointing year for the appropriations process. Historically, the process begins with the president's budget, and then comes a budget resolution passed by the House and the Senate for the spending priorities in the next fiscal year. We didn't do that. Then there's an allocation, usually, after the passage of a budget resolution, of how much each subcommittee of the Appropriations Committee can work with, total amounts of dollars. We didn't do that. Then the subcommittees have hearings, and some of these subcommittees of appropriations, many hearings, to explore whether the dollar amounts that are allocated for a certain purpose really are well spent and serve their purpose. We didn't do that. Then the subcommittee is supposed to meet and vote out an appropriations bill at the end of that process, reporting it to the full committee, and we didn't do that. And then the Appropriations Committee is supposed to take up the subcommittee's product, debate it, subject to amendment, and pass it out for consideration by the full body. We never did that as well. The matter is supposed to come to the floor of the Senate, be debated as well, perhaps amended, pass the Senate if it has the right necessary vote. We didn't do that. And then it's supposed to go to the House of Representatives and to see how it matches up with their similar work product. We didn't do that either. Ultimately, it may result in a conference report, according to the rules, between the House and the Senate, and that never happened. So the entire budget and appropriations process was completely avoided. And we find ourselves extending a continuing resolution for the spending of the United States government for weeks at a time until after the election. So now we face the prospect of the 11th hour, a decision to finish the work we were elected to do, or to simply delay this situation again. Well, we need to do our job, and we need to do it now. We need to pass our annual appropriations bills and to keep the government running. I cannot imagine the unforgivable and embarrassing tragedy it would be if the government is shut down for our failure to reach a decision. We need to pass a COVID relief bill. I was happy to join a group of 10 senators, 5 Democrats and 5 Republicans. 3 weeks ago, we met for dinner one night, safe social distancing in one of the members' houses, and spent several hours talking about our frustration that we hadn't passed a COVID relief bill since March when we passed the CARES Act. And we know that things have gotten worse in this country, not only in the pandemic, but also in the state of the economy. For some reason, we just couldn't reach an agreement, the two parties. Well, this mixed group of senators, both political parties, had a bold idea: let's try to do it ourselves. So we sat down, and in the course of 3 weeks, I cannot tell you how many hours we spent on the phone, Zoom calls, other conference calls. Calls were even taking place on Thanksgiving Day, talking about what a COVID relief bill might look like. And some of the items we debated long and hard, most of them we agreed on. This last Tuesday, this week, we reported our bill to the United States Senate, to the floor of the Senate, and to the leaders. And we didn't just give them a memo with concepts, we gave them an actual bill that could be introduced today. The bill itself is significant in that it has $748 billion in spending. The areas of spending are fairly predictable. Extending unemployment insurance benefits with $300 a week federal supplement. $300 billion for business loans for those that are struggling to survive. An additional $13 billion for the food stamp program, now known as SNAP, so that people who are relying on that perhaps in the midst of unemployment, will have enough to eat. $13 billion for our farmers, $25 billion for emergency rental assistance to avoid evictions, $34 billion to hospitals, clinics for help as well. A portion of that set aside for rural hospitals, $16 billion for testing and tracing and the logistics of delivering the vaccine across America, $12 billion for a CDFI project for minority businesses, $5 billion for additional help with mental health counseling, and we know that this pandemic and the economy have taken their toll on the mental health of America. $82 billion for education, $20 billion of that for higher education. School districts and schools, universities too, have spent a lot of money because of COVID-19, and we want to help them get back on their feet. $10 billion for child care, a critical element for many families. If they can't find child care, many people can't go back to work. We want to give them help. $10 billion for broadband. Expanding broadband became critically important when kids relied on it to continue their education and remote learning. $45 billion for transportation, everything from the airline industry to Amtrak to transit to buses. They've all been hit hard, and we need them to come back with our economy. $10 billion for our Postal Service, and boy, have they worked hard during this pandemic to keep up with the demands. And extensions of opportunities to use CARES money into the next fiscal year, next calendar year, I should say. And there were more. We reached agreement on all of these and came up with a bill that we presented to the leadership on both the House and the Senate, both parties. The good news is they didn't ignore it. They embraced it and started their own negotiations at the very highest levels of leadership in the Congress. Fingers crossed, we may come up with a bill today, COVID relief bill. So from the time of our press conference on Tuesday to the delivery of a product as soon as today is an amazing accomplishment when you consider all the time that we've spent waiting in hopes that we could find that solution. We have made significant progress. Funding the government is basic to our work in Congress, and this COVID relief bill is essential as well. Now, I'm disappointed in our work product as pride and disappointment. The disappointment is the fact that we didn't reach an agreement on state and local government assistance. I favor that strongly, and I hope we turn to that issue as soon as we return in January. Also, there was a question of liability in lawsuits during the time of COVID-19. We offered several alternatives. The Republicans countered with theirs. We never had a meeting of the mind on that issue. I hope that we do return to it at some point, soon. We need to put government spending on a course that makes sense for the next year that we're going to be tackling as soon as January. For the military and the FBI, public housing and transportation, medical research, cybersecurity, governing is the worst in any way that we approach it. Governing by CR is the worst possible way to do business. Continuing resolutions impede our government's ability to operate efficiently and frankly waste money. Taxpayers deserve better. A continuing resolution would leave us operating under funding levels which, before we face this national emergency, which is in every part of America today, it would restrict agencies from shifting dollars around to meet the challenges, and it would hurt their ability to plan ahead, hire and train new employees, start new projects. Continuing resolutions cause delays in contracts and grants when we need them the most. There are many examples of these. Funding for medical research. I don't think there's an American alive today who doesn't value medical research more today than they did a year ago. The Warp Speed project appears to be a dramatic success, and I pray that it will be. Although I've been a frequent critic of this administration, I want to give them credit for organizing this effectively and delivering a vaccine in a timely way, almost amazing timely way, in this pandemic that we face. I thank all who were involved in it, especially the scientists and researchers who didn't give up until they found these vaccines. We know that FEMA has been would be prohibited from awarding Homeland Security grants to state and local governments unless we do our business of passing a budget. Safety and efficiency improvements in our transportation programs, such as bridge repairs, need to be timely and implemented. States and cities would not receive their community development block grants, which they desperately need. The list goes on and on. Our constituents elected us to do a job, and part of that job is to create a budget for this government. Months of bipartisan committee work and weeks of bipartisan negotiations should not be cast aside. I'm hopeful that we finalize a deal today and vote on it as early as today or tomorrow at the latest. We can't expect people to wait with any patience. We've waited too long ourselves. Let me close on a topic that is related to this, Madam President.